Every day, I open Twitter.com and there is a new headline about the United States economy that someone is quote tweeting with a screenshot of The Big Short. And they're all uniquely amusing and terrifying, but by far most often I see this joke leveled at headlines regarding AI and the activity of AI companies. I could make a million separate videos, and I likely will, about the endless list of horrors that AI brings to the table. But underneath all these discussions about AI's efficacy and AI ethics, we're quietly but openly acknowledging that AI is a bubble, a financial bubble that is doomed to pop. But no one seems worried. It's like an undercurrent to every discussion that we have about AI improvement every time AI backslides. The last time a major economic bubble popped, people's lives got ruined for a bit there. And no one is concerned? What even is a bubble in terms of finance, anyways? What could happen if it pops? What would happen if it doesn't? I took a few business classes towards the end of my theater degree in a panic, mostly for my resume and to prove to myself that I could still do math. With that level of expertise and a generous lean on the research of others, I want to re-examine the colossal burst of the United States housing bubble in 2008 in order to figure out more about the AI bubble and its impending doom.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
When I was making dinner one night in my college apartment, I had a few friends over to share our meals before we had to go to a rehearsal together. When they knocked at the door, I let them in and I went to turn off the documentary that I was watching as I was cooking. And they looked at me with deep confusion and slight concern. "What are you watching?" they asked. And I answered, "Oh, it's called Panic. It's a reflection on the 2008 financial crisis." Their expressions remained blank. "Why are you watching that?" they asked. "Because I want to know what happened." "Aren't you curious about why that happened?" "No, we don't wonder about that. And we definitely wouldn't watch that for fun, to relax, like you seem to be doing." Welcome to my leisure time, everyone. A history lesson. This was a worldwide recession that your parents and maybe you experienced firsthand. So it's really important context to discuss when we talk about a financial bubble forming in a certain sector of the modern economy. Okay, so basically the 2008 financial crisis was primarily caused by subprime mortgages. A subprime mortgage is a high-risk loan that is given to someone in order to purchase a house. In the 90s and 2000s, developers were building houses. So many houses. Around 40% of new jobs in the private sector between 2001 and 2005 were housing related. Like, that's almost half of the new jobs. The housing market had really begun to prop up the entire US economy, with so many people working within housing development, while at the same time saving up that money to eventually shop for a house of their own. Speaking of shopping for a house, this time period saw a sharp rise in people taking out loans to buy houses. In 1998, US mortgage debt was equivalent to 61% of the US GDP. By 2006, it was equivalent to 97%. Girl, that's basically the whole thing. By the fourth quarter of 2007, it hit 98.4% of the GDP. The American people were taking on an amount of debt that all added up to basically the entire gross domestic product of the country itself. And this was largely made possible because of subprime mortgages. Banks and other financial institutions were issuing insane loans in order to sell a house to a person who was not understood to be able to pay that loan back, whether it be for income or a history of defaulting, prior credit card debt, or inability to make an appropriate down payment on the house. And to just go all in, banks also started offering these kinds of people even larger loans than typically given. For example, at sale, the buyer typically needs to put down around 20% of the cost of the home in the form of a down payment. Not that I'll ever have to worry about such a thing. Apparently, I'm never going to own one. But a down payment's typically 20% of the cost of a house. Banks were allowing people to pay only 10%, sometimes even lower. Sometimes they were letting people take out loans to cover the entire cost of the house plus the closing costs on working with the realtors. Now all of a sudden the buyer's mortgage could be even higher than the price of the house itself. This made the house get sold, sort of, and that further justified continuing housing development. And then houses were being sold for higher prices since the demand was higher for homes, given that these people who were traditionally shut out were now in the game. And that justified ramping up the building even more to meet this apparent demand. But nobody had really paid yet, except the banks. So all of this money and profit was just hypothetical until people started making their payments. To make a bad thing even worse, these subprime mortgages were then bundled up by the banks who had fronted the cost of the house to be sold off to other companies looking for investment opportunities. The idea was the buyers of these bundles would then collect the payments and interest on these people's mortgages. And banks assured that if the mortgagees, I don't know, what is there a word for people who take out a mortgage? The loan? Mortgagees. I'm going with mortgagees. Banks assured if the mortgagees defaulted, then the investors would still have the valuable house to resell and recoup their investment, because housing prices are notoriously stable and they don't fluctuate based on weather and location, neighborhood changes, or a strong gust of wind. Companies were going bonkers investing in these, sometimes even using these bundles as collateral for other loans that they were taking out. And that means that if they were to default on this new loan, the loaner could then acquire their subprime mortgage bundle to help pay off the new loan. It got fucked. It got really fucked for a second. But they felt comfortable listing it like this because the banks were promising them that these bundles were valuable and stable, despite being filled with loans that are literally called high-risk mortgages. So now the banks have sold a bunch of hypothetical money to companies who are using it to acquire more hypothetical money. So hypothetically, everyone is super rich, right? Foolproof. Of course not. Those people did end up eventually defaulting on their mortgages, shocking to no one, as they did not have the means to pay that money back. So now there's a shit ton of houses on the market going into foreclosure and zero demand because nobody can afford the inflated prices that these investors are trying to sell them at. One or two loan bundles collapse in value, and when one domino fell in the scheme, all of them did. All the hypothetical money vanishes. Investors in these loan bundles now had none of the value that they thought was promised to them, wiping out billions of dollars that investors and individuals alike thought that they possessed. It's 2008, and the bubble has popped. So that's the core of what a bubble means in economics. The hype of hypothetical value being misunderstood for and treated as tangible value. Often people stake real financial products on the ideas of what could happen in the future, i.e., day trading, index funds, the entire stock market, really. But there is normally a way to see how risky your investment will be. They have ways to measure it and terms to refer to certain stocks and certain funds as moderate risk, low risk, high risk. And with these bundles, these investors were being misled on how risky their investment was. These subprime mortgages were sold to them as stable products. Major banks had to be bailed out by the US government in order to continue functioning. People's retirement funds were tied up in this mess as they emptied out when critical stocks tanked. The unemployment rate jumped from 4 to 10%. When bubbles pop, especially within sectors that have embedded themselves in so many different parts of the economy, real people suffer. It ruins real people's livelihoods.
So think about the recursiveness of it, which is we're using AI to build AI tools to build better AI. So that's sort of...
The business landscape is currently really struggling to figure out what AI is worth. Companies training AI models are repeatedly telling us that AI could grow to be one of the most powerful tools ever created and eventually replace thousands of human jobs, saving companies the benefits and the salary costs. But it apparently isn't there yet. So all the money that it could save those businesses is currently just an educated guess. Joshua Rothman talked about it for The New Yorker. According to one narrative about AI, the boost it provides will eventually be big enough to allow individual workers to replace teams. Some particularly optimistic observers suggest that someday soon, we'll see the first billion-dollar companies run by one or two AI-assisted individuals. Maybe there are some kinds of work which this could be possible, but if you've tried to use technology to do your actual job, you've likely discovered its intrinsic limitations. AI systems aren't smart or well-informed enough to make many important decisions. They lack critical context. They are disembodied, forgetful, unnatural, and sometimes glaringly stupid. Perhaps most significantly, they cannot be held accountable and cannot learn on the job. They can aid you in the execution of your informed ambitions, but they cannot replace you. Rothman also calls the current glorification of AI sci-fi scenario spinning, and that is so Real. The best way to sum it up, honestly. We've all grown up watching stories of sentient, futuristic robot technology that's smarter than us and kind of lovable. But what we're currently dealing with here is not that. It's not even close. But the tech billionaires really want you and potential investors to think that we're almost there. If we build one more data center, if we let the AI model eat one more author's entire life's work to eventually spit it back out worse, we could get there. We could. One day. So AI is hypothetically super powerful, and it will hypothetically get even more powerful. So AI companies are making a bunch of hypothetical progress for a hypothetical profit. So hypothetically, everyone's super rich, right? This is why people view AI as a bubble. It's dealing in hopes and dreams. And AI suffers from the black box problem, which means that its developers often do not understand why the technology chooses to act a certain way or why it cannot perform a certain task. So literally nobody, including the people cultivating and training AI models, knows the timeline on when it will become this all-knowing supercomputer. They don't even really know if it ever will. And they have to wreak havoc in so many unique ways and continue to acquire trillions of dollars in funding, destroy communities with expensive data centers, cause a few vulnerable people to enter chatbot psychosis, possibly sustain a run-in with governmental regulations, and that's why people believe that the bubble is close to popping. How much longer can companies pour buckets of money into that dream before the return on investment isn't worth it anymore? Realistically, how long will these AI companies avoid paying back all the loans they owe, or eventually get squashed by a lawsuit? In the meantime, the companies that are banking on AI really want you to use their services. They want it so badly. But we, the general public, are not nearly as excited to utilize this technology as I think they were banking on. Microsoft recently rebranded their Office suite to automatically include their AI model, Copilot. So now all of the users of one of their most popular application suites are apparently AI enthusiasts. Google is forcing Gemini into our inboxes with AI email summaries and message generation tools. I don't use Microsoft Office, so I can't speak to how that rollout has gone personally, but boy was Google slimy with this Gemini and Gmail thing. I can't turn it off because to my understanding, turning it off means turning off all of the smart features in Gmail, like organizing my inbox into the primary and the promotional and the updates, which is important. So it's only been a few days with these fucking summaries at the top of my emails, and I can feel it killing my brain cells. It's right at the top, right when you open that email, so I feel drawn to look at it, and then I remember that, bitch, I can read an email. So then I keep scrolling down and remind myself that I have to read the entire thing. These companies are doing everything in their power to make us reliant on this technology so they can convince us to pay them for it someday, even going so far as to pull stunts to pad user numbers so the bubble remains intact. But if the public rejects their advances, similar to how the loaners defaulted on their mortgages, they could be in some real trouble.
I kind of think of ads as like a last resort for us for a business model.
7 AI companies now account for more than a third of the stock market value. They are currently playing hot potato with a couple $1 billion to try to keep each other afloat. If and when the bubble pops, it will have severe consequences across the global economy. Cory Doctorow gave a speech for Washington's Neuroscience, AI, and Society lecture series that honestly I will be quoting pretty heavily for this section because he wrapped up what could happen pretty succinctly. Would highly recommend reading his whole speech, which talks through the threat that AI has to arts and artists and the human experience. It's great. But he concludes by taking a pretty firm stance that this bubble is going to pop. AI is a bubble, and it will burst. Most of the companies will fail. Most of the data centers will be shuttered or sold for parts. So what will be left behind? We'll have the open source models that run on commodity hardware, AI tools that can do a lot of useful stuff like transcribing audio and video, describing images, summarizing documents, automating a lot of labor-intensive graphic editing, like removing backgrounds or airbrushing passersby out of photos. It's the bubble that sucks, not these applications. The bubble doesn't want cheap, useful things. It wants expensive, disruptive things. Big foundation models that lose billions of dollars every year. I also wanted to cite an episode of the Offline podcast from the Crooked Media Network, as their discussion on this topic kind of inspired this video idea for me. Host Max Fisher says, "It is the most telegraphed bubble burst in human history. In 2007, it's not like we had notes being put out by Bank of America and Goldman Sachs every 4 days saying, by the way, stocks are going to go down because the bubble is going to burst. AI at the moment can do certain tasks that will make certain jobs easier and a little more efficient, and that's what will probably remain once this bubble is burst. Companies that have forcefully integrated AI into an existing product of theirs, like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Prime, you name them, everybody, they will be able to weather the storm of an AI value collapse through the profits of the product that we all actually want from them. But as for companies like OpenAI, where AI is the whole shebang, the brave new world they pitch in order to secure funding for another data center that will skyrocket the local neighborhood's electricity bills is not real. And it maybe never will be. And they will run out of money if they can't make that world a reality. Guys, popping in with a webcam video as I edit this, like a true to form YouTuber, to say that some developments have been made over the time that I'm editing this that really don't look too good, especially for the company that I just mentioned. OpenAI is now going to have ads or testing. They plan to start testing ads in ChatGPT free and Go tiers, whatever the fuck that means. And they have a whole bunch of standards for it, but someone's running out of money. There was also a headline, I haven't read the full story. The headline says that OpenAI is rapidly losing money and is projected to lose $14 billion in 2026 alone. If they can't get another round of funding, OpenAI could run out of money as soon as 2027. Guys, I'm throwing a party. Everyone cheer. I'm cheering. But it's an important development. Will the bubble pop? These are not good signs. And again, regular people's lives are entrenched in this bullshit. Cory Doctorow writes, AI is a bubble and bubbles are terrible. Bubbles transfer the life savings of normal people who are just trying to have a dignified retirement to the wealthiest and most unethical people in our society. And every bubble bursts eventually, taking their savings with it.
I think in 5 years' time, everybody will have their own AI companion, which will know them so intimately and so personally that it will come to live life alongside you.
If a miracle occurs and the AI bubble never pops and the AI industry never has a value collapse, it will be because companies have weaved AI into everything. Real people will lose their jobs as we become reliant on AI. Real people are already losing their jobs just at the prospect of it. Early career hiring in certain roles is rapidly falling, like software developers and customer service. Entry-level positions will be automated by a technology that may not be up to the task yet, for the sake of the budget line. This places the burden onto new college graduates who lack the experience for mid-career roles, but enter the workforce to find that the jobs where they could have gained that experience have vanished. That offline episode I mentioned earlier provides a chilling take on what else might happen. Hosts Jon Favreau and Max Fisher say, I should also point out that the AI bubble bursting might be the better scenario than the AI bubble not bursting, and then the robots taking over everything. I hadn't quite thought of it that way, that in order for the bubble to not catastrophically burst, we're going to have to become the Matrix. AI can only continue developing with an obscene amount of data. So if the bubble is to stay intact, it will eventually need to digest almost all of the media being produced by everyone every minute. It will need to prove its value by being an all-knowing supercomputer that makes managerial decisions and financial decisions beyond taking some meeting notes. It will have to make severe choices about real human livelihoods and the future of human stake in companies, not just generate a weird, cringy video of you meeting a celebrity in different eras of their lives. AI will have to be pulling the strings for most decisions, from Fortune 500 company strategy all the way down to everyday choices. It will need to create media and entertainment that we all want to watch and will pay to watch, despite that media being devoid of any soul. It will surveil, analyze, diagnose, therapize, echo chamber everyone as they chat with their chatbots multiple times a day. That's the world where the AI bubble doesn't pop. Is that a world we really want to be living in? Needless to say, it is not where I want to be, and I hate to encourage economic collapse, but unfortunately I think that humankind will be better for it in the long run. The general public have a key role in the fate of this bubble, and at the moment, we are looking poised to jam our finger right through it. Only time will tell. A girl can dream. I had so much fun with this one, guys. If you are a finance person and you are watching this and you're like, wow, that was reductive, it probably was. Again, theater degree here. Feel free to discuss and clarify in the comments. My parting message for this one is that if you are in the US of A, like I am, please consider donating to organizations that are fighting for immigrants, such as United We Dream and the National Immigration Law Center. Or give your time by attending protests, documenting ICE in your neighborhood, and warning your community through rapid response groups. It is a horrifying moment, and we have to look out for each other. You can like this video, you could subscribe, you could do whatever you want. I'll be back soon. Thank you for watching.